Okay, let's just jump right in. If I ask you to name the single invention that defines the modern world, what would you say? The printing press? Maybe the steam engine? The microchip? Well, what if I told you the machine that truly built our world wasn't any of those, but something that's probably hanging on your wall or sitting on your wrist right now?
And that brings us to this pretty wild idea from thinkers like Louis Mumford and Max Weber. Their claim that the clock, not the steam engine, is the real key to our modern industrial age. And in this explainer, we're going to dig into why they might have been absolutely right.
You see, you've got to understand, the first mechanical clocks didn't just tell time, they totally remade it. Before them, time was, natural. It was fluid. It was tied to the sunrise, the sunset, the seasons. But this new machine, it forced a completely new kind of time onto the world, an abstract, mechanical, and relentless rhythm that would change society forever.
So, what was the big secret sauce? What made it so revolutionary? Well, it all boils down to this radical new idea, the invention of equal hours. For the very first time in history, an hour in the dead of winter was exactly the same length as an hour in the middle of a summer afternoon. And that was all possible because of one brilliant piece of engineering.
This right here is the Verge escapement. You can think of it as the beating heart of the first true mechanical clocks. See, before this, timekeepers always depended on something external, like the flow of water or a shadow from the sun. But the escapement, it created a machine that could regulate itself. It basically gave the machine its own internal pulse, a steady tick-tock that could measure time consistently, completely on its own.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because this slide basically shows a massive culture clash. On one side, you have seasonal hours. That's the time of nature, of the farm, of the church. And on the other, you have equal hours, abstract, predictable, mechanical. This was the time of the merchant, the time of contracts, the time of money. It was a whole new way of seeing the world.
And this new way of thinking, it didn't stay locked away in a monastery for long. Oh no, it spread like wildfire. The clock very quickly became this huge piece of public infrastructure, something that literally towered over the entire city.
But here's the thing that's kind of wild to think about. These first public clocks looked nothing like we imagine. They were massive iron machines, bolted into bell towers. And get this, most of them didn't even have a face or hands. Their whole job was to make noise, to ring a bell.
And that makes perfect sense when you find out that the word clock actually comes from the medieval Latin word for bell, which is cloca. For the first time, an entire city could be synchronized to a single shared sound. Time was something you heard long before it was something you saw.
And just look how fast this takeover was. I mean, this timeline is incredible. You go from a design on paper at Oxford to basically every major city in Northern Europe having one in about a single lifetime. They even started hiring full-time professionals just to take care of them. This wasn't a slow burn, it was an absolute technological revolution.
And yeah, it really was a revolution, because a technology that spreads that fast does more than just tell time. When you synchronize an entire society to a machine, you don't just change schedules, you change the society itself. You create a completely new social order.
So, why? What was the driving force? Well, the demand came from two really powerful and very different groups. First, you had the monks, who needed to keep track of the 8 daily offices for prayer. But then, you also had the brand new merchant class, who desperately needed to coordinate labor, shipping, and business. The clock, it turns out, served both God and commerce.
And the consequences of that were just profound. The clock essentially took time away from the authority of the church and put it in the hands of the city. It started regulating everything: work bells, curfews, market openings. But most importantly, it made it possible to measure work in abstract units we call hours. And right there, that's the conceptual beginning of the hourly wage, and really, the entire system of modern capitalism.
Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. Hold on a second. Weren't there other amazing clocks in other parts of the world way before this? And that is an excellent question. Answering it is actually the key to understanding why this specific invention was such a game changer.
I mean, what about those incredible, massive water clocks like Susong's masterpiece in 11th century China? Those things were absolute marvels of engineering. So what makes the European mechanical clock a completely different beast?
All right, let's put them side by side. The key difference is all about where the control comes from. Sung's clock was brilliant, but it was regulated by an external force, the flow of water. If that flow changed, so did the clock's speed. But the European clock, it was the first to be truly self-regulating. Thanks to that escapement, it had its own internal pacemaker. It controlled its own speed. And that, right there, was the crucial leap.
So let's bring this home. That ticking machine, born in a 14th century bell tower, created an echo that has bounced down through the centuries, all the way to the smartphone sitting in your pocket right now.
It's really a chain reaction when you think about it. Step 1, a machine creates this new reality of uniform, predictable time. Step 2, all of society starts dancing to its rhythm. Step 3, over generations, our brains actually rewire themselves to think in these abstract blocks of minutes and hours. And the end result? Step 4, our entire modern world, a world run by schedules, deadlines, and this relentless chase for efficiency.
So in the end, the invention of the mechanical clock wasn't just another neat gadget. It was, as the source material so powerfully puts it, a cultural earthquake. It completely and permanently changed the landscape of how we experience life. That bell ringing from the tower in Milan back in 1336, it wasn't just telling people the time of day. It was announcing the birth of an entirely new world, a new way of being, and we are all still living inside the echo of that very first bell. Which leaves us with one last question to chew on. The mechanical clock was this incredible tool that gave humanity a new sense of control over time. But now, in our digital world of constant pings, alerts, and notifications, you have to wonder, has the tool taken control back from us? Something to think about.